Tonight on Huckabee, Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, film actor and producer Tank Jones, David McGee's mind-blowing magic, songs of the season with the Music City Connection. That's Trey Corley at the Music City Connection. And I'm your announcer, Keith Bilbrey. And now, here's Mike Huckabee! Welcome, everybody. Matt Gaetz is about to start his fourth term in Congress. He just cruised to re-election. He's got some fans out here. He does. Well, he just cruised to re-election in Florida's 1st District, where he served since 2017. Now, as Republicans are set to take control of Congress in just a few weeks, investigations are at the top of the agenda. But Matt Gaetz says Congress needs to be held just as accountable as the Biden White House. We're going to find out just what he means by that. Please welcome to our show in Nashville for the very first time, Congressman Matt Gaetz. So I got to ask, did you bring the fan club with you? And are these folks that just have seen you on TV and they already like you?
I just assume that it's the holiday spirit. We've come through a time of Thanksgiving. We're headed to Christmas. And the only thing that makes this Florida man a little nervous is when I see these snowflakes falling in the background, because in my state, when it snows, we call out the National Guard and shut down the schools.
Yes.
So the fact that other humans can live through that is very impressive to me.
Well, the only snowflakes we're going to try to shoot down tonight are the ones in Washington who are scared of their own shadow. And there are a bunch of them. I'm going to jump into a big topic, and it's one that, quite frankly, I'm not sure you and I see completely eye to eye on. I want to get your perspective. You have said, along with a small handful of other Republicans going into Congress, that you don't want to vote for Kevin McCarthy to be the Speaker. And, I'm just curious. Why not? And what will you accomplish if you oppose him? Is there any chance that somebody else would be elected Speaker?
I think about 98% of the people who support Kevin McCarthy for Speaker live inside the beltway of Washington, D.C. Because as I travel the country and talk to our dedicated patriots, folks would be far more excited about the candidacy of Jim Jordan from Ohio.
Yeah. Jim's been on the show. Love him to death.
Or any number of other fighters.
Yeah.
And here's my critique of McCarthy. Decision points really expose how someone thinks about the fight that we are in. And Kevin McCarthy has failed the test of leadership time and again. I remember at the beginning of this Congress when I said it was untenable for Liz Cheney to be the conference chair.
Yeah.
Kevin McCarthy stood up and backed Liz Cheney and only came to the conclusion I was at many months later. I remember after January 6th when we needed to expose the lies and false narrative of the media and the left, Kevin McCarthy was circulating a censure motion against Donald Trump and saying on a sniveling phone call that Trump ought to resign. And then I remember when I verbally criticized Liz Cheney, Kevin McCarthy said that I was gaslighting violence. Even the last time we were in the majority, Kevin McCarthy was the majority leader. And when Jim Jordan and Ron DeSantis and Mark Meadows and I wanted subpoena power to expose the corrupt activities of the deep state, Kevin McCarthy sat silent as Paul Ryan blocked every subpoena request that we submitted. Paul Ryan has backed Kevin McCarthy. A lot of the establishment figures that I think took our party in the wrong direction seem to be enthusiastic about his speakership. But I'll tell you this, we have the votes to block him. And I think we ought to get to the business of picking someone that represents the conservative center of our caucus, someone who will diffuse power from the speakership, empower the members, and get us to the fighting force that our country deserves.
But Matt, even Jim Jordan and Marjorie Taylor Greene, both of whom have been on our show, and we loved having them, both of them are supporting Kevin McCarthy, who I like. I've known him a long time. I like Kevin McCarthy. And maybe he's not as stout as, let's say, a Jim Jordan would be in some ways. I guess I'm asking, if you block him, then what happens? Do the Democrats end up with enough votes that they can put a speaker in place?
That is a false narrative. The Democrats have 212 votes.
They got to have 218.
It takes 218, and there are not 6 Republicans. I don't think there's a single Republican who has even expressed any willingness to vote for a Democrat. So I think that is a threat that is constructed by a lot of the folks in the swamp of Washington that want a speaker beholden to the lobbyists. You know what argument people make for Kevin McCarthy? He is the LeBron James of special interest fundraising. No one extracts more money from the lobbyists and special interests than Kevin McCarthy. But I think that ought to be disqualifying, not qualifying. I frankly think that federal lobbyists shouldn't even be able to donate to members of Congress. Like, how is it the people who are paid to influence our vote then get to give us money, and then you act like that doesn't influence how members of Congress think about things?
Now, you do realize that if Kevin ends up being Speaker after all, you'll be on the committee to monitor the quality of Girl Scout cookies for the rest of your term in Congress. So there may be a price to be paid.
Well, look, apostling ain't easy. Sometimes you got to get in the fight. And I see how our people feel let down by the folks who just play the game the same way. I'm tired of watching Washington just serve as a geography where both sides are fighting over who gets to be the valet for the special interests. And you know what? This slim majority was disappointing to many, but it may give us an opportunity that even a large majority wouldn't have presented to actually upset the apple cart, to drain the swamp, and to not trust the biggest alligators there to do it.
There's no doubt that virtually everything you've said about the lobbyist power is absolutely true. Obviously, my monologue, that's what I'm talking about. And as well, the frustration of seeing Republicans when they get in power, and yet then they just want to be kind and sweet. Look, I'd love to be the kindest person in politics, but that's when you get hurt. That's when you go to the line of scrimmage and the guy across from you is coming at you with full speed. And if you say, I just want to be very kind and I don't want to even hit you, you're going to get run over. And that's what's happened to us time and again. I
know the gospel tells us to turn the other cheek, but if it's all the same to you, I'm more an Old Testament Republican, and an eye for an eye sounds pretty good to me.
There is some value in that. Politics is like, I tell people, because they say, well, how as a Christian can you engage, in the battle? I said, the same way that an NFL football player engages. He may be the nicest person and sing wonderfully in the church choir on Sunday, but Sunday afternoon, when he lines up at the line of scrimmage, if he doesn't hit hard, he won't last more than 30 minutes in his entire NFL career. So, no, I totally get that. You went through some pretty tough personal battles. You were targeted. So many rumors and crazy stuff. And then all of a sudden, it just sort of fizzled out. It just went away. It's got to be frustrating to have your name smeared time and again in newspapers and on television. And then suddenly, there's nothing here to see. Let's just move on. But this is happening to too many people who challenge the status quo. Is that what was going on with you?
Well, for folks that pay attention, you see a certain pattern recognition where there is an entire industry built to try to smear and lie about conservatives. We saw it with President Trump. We saw it with my friend Jim Jordan. We saw it with Justice Kavanaugh. And I endured some of the same. Without evidence, without anyone accusing me of misconduct, the media was willing to try and convict me. And two things really I kept in my heart. One is that God does not give us anything that we cannot handle. I firmly believe that. And the second is that you can't ever let the process be the punishment. I think about how tough that was for me, but it's nothing like the tough things that folks in my district are going through when you can't afford to pay for your medicine and your fuel, when you can't plan for a brighter and more prosperous future because of the impacts of inflation, when mom or dad are deployed to some never-ending foreign war without purpose or focus. And so I tried to really center myself on the notion that we all go through trials. It certainly is good to be through all of that and focused on the great work we have ahead. But you know what now, Governor? I think that maybe the hunter is going to become the hunted, because now the FBI has to show up and answer our questions. The folks at the DOJ who are using political bias as a substitute for following the facts and the law won't just have to answer my questions for 5 minutes, like when we were in the minority. They'll have to answer my questions hour after hour, and I can't wait.
And I can't either, because one of the things I've admired most about you is that you're absolutely unafraid, and you want to hold people accountable. And you are one of the, and I'm not just saying this because you're here, one of the most articulate members in Congress from either party. And when you go after somebody, I've always said I'd hate to be in a courtroom with you on the other side of my legal predicament. I just don't want to do that.
But investigations can have an impact, Governor. And in divided government, I don't think we should fool people into believing that there's some magical bill that we're going to pass, that Chuck Schumer's going to sign on to, and that Joe Biden's going to allow to become law.
Not going to happen.
But these investigations can change the weaponization of this government. Remember the Ministry of Truth? They were really going to do that.
Yes, they were.
They were going to use the government to be the arbiter of truth or falsity, to change what people see and how they act and what they believe. And when we exposed it, they had to back down. Anita Jankowicz doesn't work for our government. Matter of fact, she's now a registered foreign agent. That's what they really think of you and what they think of our country. And so if we expose what's going on the border, if we expose how political the FBI and Department of Justice have become, if we expose how compromised the Biden family is, we can connect the pain that people are feeling right now to the bad decisions. And I think that's got a better chance to force change than to try to go hold hands in the warm spring rain with Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And one of the things that I hope Republicans don't do, and I said this tonight in the monologue, I don't want them to wimp out. And here's the thing. This is not about revenge for what they did to Republicans, what they did to Donald Trump. Not that. It is about accountability. If people have done things that are in violation of the law, and more specifically, violation of the constitutional principle of separation of powers and of justice that is equal for all, then there has to be accountability for that, because if there isn't, we've lost our country. Without a doubt.
Well, take just, for example, this information from Hunter Biden's laptop, and you look at the way that big government, big media, and big tech all circled the wagons to really perpetrate a fraud on the American people. And now we have whistleblowers that are coming forward to say that when they brought credible evidence of violations of law, they were just told by higher ups that all had to be classified as Russian disinformation.
You represent the district in Congress that has more military members, both active and retired, than any one of the 435 districts in the entire country. First District of Florida is a military district. What is it that these military heroes of ours, the active duty and the retired, thank God for every one of them, what is it that they tell you that they just want most from their own government? You know,
it used to be a new air tower or a longer runway, maybe a new weapon system. But right now, our patriots, the people that wear the uniform, the top of the top, the best of the best, they feel like they are being persecuted through this woke agenda where they're trying to tell people they're naturally oppressors or oppressed because of their race. And like, why is it that it's easier to get drag queen story hour on a military base than a Bible, than the teachings that our country is founded on? And so for the first time in my public service, and I have represented these people one way or another since 2010, this new issue matrix around trying to divide us, trying to otherize our fellow Americans, it's really impacting the morale of the fighting force, and it is impacting recruiting. I mean, when you start telling people that they come from a bad place or a bad state or a bad town, you really limit our ability to attract the best patriots.
And we want them to be the best they can possibly be. Matt Gaetz, great to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Governor.
We are looking forward to seeing Matt Gaetz in some of these hearings coming up. I certainly am. And then for our audience, you can check out the congressman all over TV when these investigations heat up. But if you'd like to follow him on social media as well and check out his podcast called Firebrand, we have all the links for you. Just go to Huckabee.tv. You can get it right there.